The shadow is not your enemy, it is your teacher. Most people spend their entire lives running from the parts of themselves they were taught to be ashamed of. Their anger, their jealousy, their greed, their darkest fantasies. They lock these feelings in a basement and pretend the basement doesn't exist. But here is the shocking truth. The very thing you are running from is the thing carrying your unclaimed power. The shadow is not evil. It is not a monster waiting to destroy you. It is simply everything about yourself that you were forced to reject in order to be loved, accepted, or safe as a child. Every time you suppress it, it doesn't disappear. It grows stronger in the dark, waiting for the moment you are most tired, most stressed, most vulnerable, to burst out and control you completely. That's why good people suddenly do terrible things. That's why calm people explode. The shadow was never destroyed, only ignored. And ignored pain always finds a way to scream louder. The moment you stop treating your darkness as an enemy to be destroyed and start treating it as a teacher with a message, everything changes. It stops controlling you from behind the curtain and starts working for you. Mastery does not begin with fighting the shadow. It begins with turning around, facing it directly, and asking one terrifying question: what are you trying to show me? Everything you hate in others' lives, in you. Here is something that will disturb you. The people who irritate you the most, the traits you judge the harshest, a liar, a coward, an arrogant fool, are mirrors. What you cannot tolerate in another person is almost always a piece of yourself you have refused to look at. This is not an accusation, it is a law of the inner world. When you feel a burning, disproportionate reaction to someone's behavior, that intensity is a signal, not a coincidence. Calm observation doesn't feel that hot, only recognition does. We build our identity by deciding who we are not. I am not lazy, I am not cruel, I am not weak. And every rejected trait gets pushed outward, projected onto the world like a film reel onto a blank screen. Then we spend our lives fighting our reflection in other people, never realizing the battle was always internal. This is why some people can never stop complaining about others. They are fighting themselves through a proxy and losing every single time. Because you cannot defeat in someone else what you refuse to face in yourself. The moment you catch yourself reacting violently to someone's flaw, pause. Ask what part of you feels exposed. That discomfort is not weakness. It is a locked door with a key in your own pocket. The mask you wear is not your face. From childhood, you were handed a costume. The good student, the strong provider, the easygoing friend, the one who never gets angry. This mask helped you survive socially, but slowly, dangerously, people start to believe the mask is who they actually are. This is one of the most shocking traps of the human mind. You can forget your own face by staring at your reflection for too long. The mask is useful. It is not fraudulent to have one. But when you fuse with it completely, everything that doesn't fit the costume, your rage, your desires, your exhaustion, your doubts, gets exiled into the shadow. And the split between the mask and the real self grows wider every year. Eventually, the pressure becomes unbearable. People wake up at 40, 50, 60 years old and ask, who have I actually been living as? That crisis is not a breakdown. It is the buried self finally demanding to be seen. Mastering the shadow requires taking the mask off on purpose, in private, and asking honestly, which parts of me have I been performing and which parts have I been hiding? The goal is not to destroy the mask, you need it to function in the world, but to stop mistaking the costume for the person wearing it. Integration, not elimination, is the real goal. This is where almost everyone gets it wrong, and it is shocking how much damage this mistake causes. People think mastering their dark side means destroying it, disciplining it into silence, meditating it away, praying it into non-existence. This never works, and it cannot work. Because you cannot annihilate a part of your own psyche without annihilating a part of your own power. Rage, when integrated, becomes protective strength and healthy boundaries. Jealousy, when integrated, becomes a signal of what you truly desire and are not yet pursuing. Even cruelty, when faced honestly, becomes the sharp edge of necessary discipline. Elimination creates repression, and repression always leaks out sideways as passive aggression, self-sabotage, sudden collapse, or addiction. Integration means holding the trait consciously, choosing when and how it gets expressed, rather than letting it hijack you unconsciously. A person who has integrated their shadow is not someone without darkness. It is someone who now commands it like a trained force, instead of being ambushed by it like a hidden enemy. This is the difference between a wildfire and a furnace. Same fire. One destroys everything around it. The other generates warmth, light, and power on command. Integration is not moral perfection. It is psychological wholeness, and wholeness is where real strength lives. The wound you hide becomes the power you deny. Every person carries a wound they have never spoken aloud. Humiliation, abandonment, betrayal, shame so old it feels like it was born with them. The instinct is to bury it so deep that even you forget where it's buried. But here is the shocking part. The depth of your hidden wound is exactly equal to the depth of the power you are refusing to use. The parts of yourself that were shamed the hardest often contain the greatest untapped gifts. The sensitive child mocked for crying grows into the adult with the deepest emotional intelligence, if he stops hiding it. The person shamed for being too much often holds the exact intensity the world desperately needs, if she stops shrinking it. Shame doesn't just hide the wound, it hides the gift sitting right next to it, because they were wounded together and buried together. This is why healing is never about becoming someone new. It is about excavation, going back into the buried room and retrieving what was left behind in fear. The people who seem to radiate unshakable presence are not people without wounds. They are people who went back for what they left behind. Your deepest wound, once faced without flinching, does not just heal. It becomes the exact source of your unmistakable power. Wholeness, not perfection, is the real victory. Society sells you an impossible goal. Become purely good, purely positive, purely light, and eliminate everything else. This goal is not just difficult, it is a trap, because a human being who has erased half of themselves is not enlightened. They are incomplete, brittle, and secretly exhausted from the performance. The real target was never perfection. It was wholeness, the conscious ownership of every part of you, light and dark, gentle and fierce, generous and selfish, disciplined and wild. A whole person is not predictable or nice all the time. A whole person is real, grounded, and impossible to manipulate because there is no hidden shame left for anyone to exploit. This is the final shock. The moment you stop trying to be good and start trying to be whole, you become more powerful, more magnetic, and more at peace than you ever were while performing perfection. Wholeness means your strength and your softness live in the same room without one having to kill the other. It means you can be furious and still be kind, ambitious and still be humble, wounded and still be unstoppable. This is not a destination you arrive at once and finish. It is a lifelong relationship with every part of yourself. But the day you choose wholeness over performance is the day you finally stop being at war with your own reflection. What if the very thing you've spent your whole life hiding from is the exact thing you were sent here to master? What if every person who ever made your blood boil was actually holding up a mirror to a part of you that you buried alive years ago? What if the anger you swallow, the jealousy you deny, the shame you never speak of out loud, are not flaws to be destroyed, but locked rooms filled with power you've been too afraid to enter? Somewhere inside you, right now, there is a version of yourself you were taught to reject. And that rejected self has been quietly running your life from the shadows, your outbursts, your self-sabotage, your sudden collapses, all of it, a message from a part of you still waiting to be seen. Today, that ends. Today, we go into the dark, not to fight it, but to finally understand it. Because the moment you stop running from your own shadow is the moment it stops chasing you and starts working for you. What if the very thing you've spent your whole life hiding from is the exact thing you were sent here to master? What if every person who ever made your blood boil was actually holding up a mirror to a part of you that you buried alive years ago? What if the anger you swallow, the jealousy you deny, the shame you never speak of out loud, are not flaws to be destroyed, but locked rooms filled with power you have been too afraid to enter? Somewhere inside you right now, there is a version of yourself you were taught to reject. Maybe it happened when you were 6 years old and you were told good children don't get angry. Maybe it happened when you were a teenager and you learned that wanting too much made people uncomfortable. Whatever the moment was, you made a decision without realizing it. You took a piece of your own soul and you locked it in a basement. And here is what nobody tells you. That piece never died. It grew. It grew in the dark, unwatched, unspoken, and it has been quietly running your life from the shadows ever since. Your outbursts you can't explain, your self-sabotage right before success, your sudden collapse when everything looked fine from the outside. None of that was random. All of it was a message from a part of you still waiting to be seen. Stop treating your darkness as an enemy to be destroyed and start treating it as a teacher with something urgent to tell you. It is not trying to ruin you, it is trying to reach you. And the moment you turn around and face it instead of running, it stops chasing you and starts working for you. Now, here is something that will disturb you. The people who irritate you the most, the traits you judge the hardest in others, are almost always mirrors. That co-worker whose arrogance makes your skin crawl, that friend whose selfishness enrages you. Ask yourself why the reaction is so intense. Calm observation doesn't burn that hot, only recognition does. We spend our lives fighting our own reflection in other people, never realizing the war was always internal. The next time someone's flaw sets you on fire, pause and ask what part of you feels exposed. That discomfort is not weakness. It is a locked door, and the key has been in your pocket the whole time. From childhood, you were also handed a costume. The good student, the strong provider, the one who never gets angry, never falls apart, never needs help. That mask helped you survive, but slowly, dangerously, you started to believe the costume was your actual face. This is one of the strangest traps of the human mind. You can forget what you look like by staring at your own reflection for too long. Everything that didn't fit the costume, your rage, your exhaustion, your doubts, got exiled into the dark, and the gap between the mask and the real you grew wider every single year until the pressure became unbearable. That is why people wake up at 40, at 50, at 60 and ask, who have I actually been living as? That is not a breakdown. That is the buried self, finally demanding to be seen. And here is where almost everyone gets it wrong. They think mastering their dark side means destroying it, disciplining it into silence, meditating it away. This does not work, and it cannot work, because you cannot annihilate a part of your own psyche without annihilating a part of your own power. Rage, faced honestly, becomes protective strength. Jealousy, faced honestly, becomes a map of what you actually desire and haven't pursued yet. The goal was never elimination, it was integration. A person who has integrated their shadow is not a person without darkness. It is a person who now commands that fire like a furnace, instead of being burned by it like a wildfire. Same fire, completely different outcome. Every one of us also carries a wound we have never spoken aloud, and here is the part that should shake you. The depth of your hidden wound is exactly equal to the depth of the power you are refusing to use. The child mocked for being too sensitive often grows into the adult with the deepest emotional intelligence if he stops hiding it. The one shamed for being too much often holds the exact intensity the world is starving for if she stops shrinking it. Shame does not just bury the wound, it buries the gift sitting right next to it because they were buried together. Healing was never about becoming someone new. It was about going back into that room and retrieving what you left behind in fear. Society will keep selling you an impossible goal. Become purely good, purely positive, erase everything else. But a person who has erased half of themselves is not enlightened. They are incomplete, brittle, and secretly exhausted from the performance. The real target was never perfection, it was wholeness. Owning every part of yourself, the light and the dark, the gentle and the fierce, the disciplined and the wild, without needing one to kill the other. A whole person cannot be manipulated because there is no hidden shame left for anyone to exploit. The day you choose wholeness over performance is the day you stop being at war with your own reflection, and that is the real victory. Not becoming someone without a shadow, becoming someone who finally walks beside it. You were never broken. You were never wrong for feeling what you felt. Every part of you that you were taught to hide, the anger, the jealousy, the shame, the hunger for more, was never your weakness. It was your unclaimed power, waiting in the dark for the day you would finally turn around and claim it. Mastering your shadow is not a one-time event. It is not a switch you flip and forget. It is a lifelong conversation with every version of yourself you have ever tried to bury. But every single day you choose to look instead of run, you take back a piece of your own power. And slowly, without needing to announce it to anyone, you stop performing a life and start living one, whole, unshakable, and finally, undeniably yourself.